to recognize Mr. Brewer. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ranking Member Biggs, distinguished members. Oh, I'm sorry. Madam Chair, Jackson Lee, Ranking Member Biggs, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. I'm a resident of Parkland, Florida, and I understand the impact of these tragedies on our communities. I'm a father of 4. Unfortunately, I've experienced gun violence firsthand. At 14 years old, my friend shot a skinhead in the neck in self-defense after a group tried to break into his house. I will never forget the trauma I felt from having to serve as a witness in that case. Trauma and fear hardened me. After I was threatened and bullied and harassed by skinheads, I started to carry an illegal pistol at 15 years old, or 22 long to be exact. I even took it to school after the skinheads threatened me. I didn't know it then, but I know it now. I was traumatized. I'll never forget being shot at and seeing a stray pellet skin my cousin's arm. I was a young kid with all the world in front of me. I was a straight-A student, a great multi-sport athlete, and even the director of my church choir. If I was caught with that gun in my pocket, I would not be testifying before you today. If I had shot and killed a skinhead or a bully back then, I may still be in prison serving a life sentence today. The difference between me and the hundreds of young black boys who are shooting at each other every week in communities across America comes down to one word: father. The reason I thought twice about ever using that illegal gun I carried in my pocket is because I had a hard-handed daddy at home that would whoop my butt. I had a fasting and praying mama at home that taught me the fear of my Father which art in heaven, and I had a father in the flesh and a father in the spirit. Proverbs 13:24 says, "He that spareth the rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chastiseth him betimes." And betimes means before the usual or expected time, early. The very school shootings that have brought so much darkness to our nation's history are exacerbated by fatherlessness. A 2016 study found that out of a sample of 56 shooters, only 18% grew up in a stable household with both biological parents. And we know this Uvalde shooter did not have a man of God in his life. When I saw that this was a bipartisan hearing to find solutions to gun violence, I prayed that the men and women of God in this room would finally be bold enough to focus on the root cause. Talking points may win elections, but addressing the root cause is the only way to solve a crisis. Research has indicated as many as 85% of shooters in communities were previously arrested, and most of them arrested for violent crimes. My foundation has worked on addressing the root cause of these issues in some of the most impoverished black communities on the planet. Recently, a neighbor of mine was shot in the face, and the 2 young gunmen ran past the kids at my youth center. As you can imagine, they are traumatized, fearful, and hardened. The same feelings and emotions that I had at their age, carrying guns and always looking over my shoulder. The difference is 80% of my kids at my youth center are fatherless. Gun laws are the least of their worries. If they cuss a teacher out, refuse to do their work, or beat up someone, they have little or no consequences in the public school system today. Parents have little or no responsibility for the actions of their children. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will never depart from it." In today's America, we have 18.6 million fatherless kids, more than any nation on earth. And we all know that kids are 20 times more likely to have a run-in with law enforcement if they're fatherless. We do not even teach the 10 Commandments in our public schools anymore, much less hold our children accountable to them. As Mr. Nadler mentioned earlier, this is an American problem. If we leave the Capitol today and decide to ban all guns, have we really done anything to address the root cause of gun violence? Walk into any prison in America and you will see a facility full of men who are locked up for crimes related to illegal guns. Charges ranging from murder and robbery and trafficking, carjacking, possession, distribution, to name a few. I run programs for thousands of men in the prison, many of whom committed gruesome gun-related crimes. The majority of these men share one common thing. They are all fatherless. Many of my students in my prison transition out and remain in our second chance programs. Several even work for my organization. One of the most violent men that I've ever met in prison is currently my roommate. He found full salvation through his Father in heaven, and he was able to meet his biological father for the first time at 50 years old, after completing 22 years in prison for violent crimes. Yes, he shot a man. He happened to be sent to a prison with real Christian-based rehabilitation programs. Unfortunately, despite the chatter about criminal justice reform in our public prison system in jails across America, we're warehousing men and women, and we're not rehabilitating them. The solutions I speak do not come from me, as I've never committed gun violence. I've only had to deal with the results and the victims as a minister and as a father. I assume not many of you in this chamber have ever pulled the trigger on an illegal gun. If we really want to solve these issues,
Mr. Brewer, can you
don't you think
wrap
that
up?
we consider proven solutions?
Can you come to a conclusion? Thank you.
As a proud American, I'm a dedicated servant to my community. I pray that we can humble ourselves and stop being conformed to the misguided politics of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of our minds, that we may prove what is good and acceptable in the perfect will of God. Thank you for having me, Ms. Chairwoman.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I have a question, a point of